Welcome to another life support podcast where I, Carl Munson, and Dr. John Briffer look at actionable advice on handling work life and everything in between. Hi, John. How are you today? Not in your natural environment, it would appear.
You've noticed that I'm not in my normal padded cell, Carl.
Quite. And is that one of those nice Zoom sort of green screen backdrops, or is that an actual thing there, a real life scenario?
It's an actual thing.
Right. Okay.
Look.
No grand. Very good. Okay, that was a high risk demonstration, and no grand piano in the background, so I believe you.
Grand piano. That's funny. Yeah, I'm in Copenhagen. I'm speaking at an event.
Wow.
Well, obviously not now, but later I'm speaking at an event.
Okay. Yes. No, something much more important.
Yeah, but what I'm most excited about, actually, the client's great. It's a client I worked with about 10 years ago. They're German.
Right. Okay.
I don't want to get into this too much, but it's the first German client I'd ever worked with, by the way. And before, all I've got in my head, first of all, the trauma of football competitions, getting knocked out and penalties. But also, you'll have experienced this. You grow up and you see these films about the Second World War, and it's just terrible Nazis with swastikas asking for papers and whatever. And that's my whole image of Germany and Germans. Right? That's it. That's seeped into my... So when I started working with them, and I'd actually go to Germany to do it outside in a place called Wanderath, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a bundle of fun. Absolutely. I know this is very patronizing, but it's not meant to be. Absolutely lovely people.
Yeah.
The culture of the organization, the people in the organization, the senses of humor, the humanity and humility of the people. I just was not expecting that. They're much closer to the Dutch than I imagined. I thought they're completely different species of people, the Dutch and the Germans. But now I've realized actually they're not that different.
Right.
And they're both basically anyway, but it's that anyway. So I haven't done any work with them for several, and they've come back. They're running some leadership meeting, and I'm speaking at the thing. Anyway, but one of the things I'm most excited about is that I have a friend that lives in Copenhagen who I'm seeing tomorrow night, as it happens, Bjorn, who I met at a conference about 25 years ago. We had a bit of a rum night the night we met.
Rum-do.
You know how it is when you meet someone and you don't go through the normal pleasantries of like getting to know someone before something kicks off in a big way. It was one of those nights. I don't want to go into the details. It was one of those nights.
It's still a matter of legal interest, is it?
Well, it was an international incident, I can tell you that.
Fantastic.
And we've just been very good friends since that time. But obviously, we don't see each other very regularly. I live in Portugal. He lives in Copenhagen, and so we've got a bit of a night planned. Anyway, there you go.
We'll have a great time.
That's why I'm in Copenhagen. By the way, I've had to open the window because otherwise, these rooms are like hermetically sealed. So if there's traffic noise, you need to let me know. I can't hear it.
Very, very au naturel. And it's a coincidence that I am wearing my German U-boat captain outfit to go along with the earlier stereotype.
I didn't know that.
Dave. Right. I love the German sense of humour, by the way, as well. I think the German and British senses of humour are very well paired. And it's often a great night once you get past those things we grew up with. Mine was like, my dad used to say they bombed our fish and chip shop, but we can laugh about that now. And let's move on swiftly to the things we're talking about today, which are Trump derangement syndrome. I have something to share on that. You want to talk about sleeping positions. We often return to sleep, don't we? The subject of sleep. And from the mailbag for the first time on this episode, is natural eyesight improvement. Now, the traditional way, of course, is to get spectacles, but there are other methods which we'll go into as well. But should we start? Where do you want to start on this episode, John? It's like when you should spin a wheel.
Sleeping positions. Let's start with sleeping positions.
All right. We'll save TDS.
I've had about 3 hours. My plane was delayed into Copenhagen last night, so I've had about 2 hours sleep. But anyway, here we are.
Sleeping position. It's like I was trying to think of a pun, as in like the Kama Sutra, but for sleeping. So there are obviously lots of different ways you can sleep, different positions you can sleep in.
Well, it'll be Kama Sutra then, won't it?
Kama
Portuguese
Sutra
for bed.
Ah, very good. Excellent. Excellent. The Kama Sutra now from Dr. John Briffa, sleeping positions. How many of them are there, do you think? And are they depicted but in Hindu scripture?
I'm sure they are.
Right, they probably not.
Along with an elephant with 8 legs, or anyway.
Yes.
So sleeping position. Well, there's, I suppose, 3 main positions, aren't there? Back, front, and side.
Yes.
The one that I don't tend to recommend is sleeping on your back. And there's a very specific reason for this, is
Really?
when people are on their back, and particularly with their mouth open,
Yeah.
there's a tendency for the tongue and other structures to fall back a bit and block the airway. So this is a major reason why people snore. But worse than that, as I think we've discussed previously, you can actually stop breathing. Some people stop breathing for seconds at a time, maybe multiple times per hour. This is called sleep apnea. And both snoring and sleep apnea are associated with a variety of long-term health issues, including higher blood pressure and diabetes and whatever. But even in the short term, they can cause particularly sleep apnea, for people to not feel particularly refreshed when they wake up in the morning. In fact, many people with quite bad sleep apnea don't feel like they've really slept at all.
I bet. Yeah.
Snoring can also do that to people, but obviously if someone's snoring and they have a sort of bedroom partner, that can be doubly problematic. So sleeping on the back, I remember once I was running a webinar sometime during lockdown, I think, and I was doing after the webinar, I was doing some one-to-ones, and this lady was telling me that she spent, it's something like $12,000 on a bed that only holds you in the back position. She had a word, like an expression for it. So they market this bed.
Robbery?
Well, yeah. Yeah. And so it sort of holds you in this back. You can't move out of this position. Really.
Well, okay.
And I didn't want to say, well, you know, exactly, that's $12,000, not very well spent, but right. Anyway, the point is, sleeping on your back, I don't think is a very good idea. Now, sleeping on your side reduces the risk that you're going to have these problems with, you know, airway obstruction and snoring and sleep apnea. But also there's, you're familiar with the condition Alzheimer's disease.
Indeed.
And one of the kind of hallmarks of this is the build-up of sort of damaged proteins in the brain. There's 2 main sorts. There's something called beta amyloid or amyloid beta, depending on who you're reading. And that sort of gums up the outside of the brain cells, basically. And within the cells, you can get a different sort of protein called tau, T-A-U, that builds up. This gumming up process is sort of a hallmark characteristic of Alzheimer's disease. Now, there is some debate, by the way, currently about whether or not it's these proteins that actually cause the problem, because there's a lot of people with quite bad cognitive function as they age that don't have a lot of these proteins in their brain. And also, very interestingly, there's a lot of people who have quite high levels of these proteins and don't have any cognitive impairment. So we don't really know whether they're really a cause of the problems with Alzheimer's or just a marker for it. But anyway, these build up during the day, and they're actually removed, these proteins, overnight through the action of something called the glymphatic system, which is the brain's lymphatic system. It's like a sewage disposal system. Now, not in humans now, but in animals, they've found that the glymphatic system works better when animals are sleeping on their sides.
Really?
Basically. And also the natural, we've discussed this before weeks ago, but the natural sleeping position of primates, so, you know, orangutans and gorillas or whatever, is side sleeping.
Is it?
None of them sleep on their back. Yes, all animals, well, all primates sleep on their sides.
Yeah.
And also, if you go to less developed places around the world, the natural sleeping position, again, is side.
Yes.
So I have a feeling this is probably the best position. I mean, sleeping on your stomach, I don't think is a terrible idea. I'm not sure it's great for the neck, for example. Like, just intuitively, I feel side sleeping is the way to go. Now, that if you're used to sleeping on your back, that's not always something you can do consciously and easily. You can train yourself over time to be more of a side sleeper than, say, a back sleeper. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to need something to do that. So there are certain devices, what are called positional devices. Like, I don't know, did Louisa ever use like a pregnancy pillow
No,
at any point?
no.
So they're
No.
these sort of long pillows that you sort of vaguely climb into, and they hold you on your side. Obviously, for a pregnant woman, let's say you're 7 months pregnant, you don't really want to be on your back.
No, or front.
I mean,
Yes.
oh yeah. So they're designed for that, but things like that actually can be quite helpful. Or you can actually get, devices like little rucksacks with rubber balls in the back, or tiny rucksacks. That's all they are, basically, that you wear to keep you off your back, because obviously you're not going to roll much onto your back if you've got something sticking into your back, right?
Yes.
But over time, what happens usually relatively quickly is people learn not to roll onto their back, so they don't have to wear them permanently. Very often they'll use them for a bit, a month or two, and then they're sort of, they've recalibrated a bit. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I think sides.
Now, I heard something long ago, John, and I mean, it's a great advertisement for spooning, isn't it? It's the spooning position we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I heard something long ago that there is also the distinction of which side you sleep on, because to sleep, and I don't know if it was like some sort of Ayurvedic or other, outside the Western medical culture, but to sleep not with your weight on your heart, but sleep on the other side. So sleeping on the left side was more advantageous than sleeping on the right side. Sleeping on the left side.
Well, hang on. First of all, the heart is really. So I don't want to get all sort of doctory and
you're going to, though. I can tell
mechanistic.
you're about to. You always say this. Whenever you say I don't want to get doctorly, that's exactly what you go ahead and do. So go on.
But when you say energy, what are you talking about?
You can't measure
that's
it.
my problem. Yeah. The heart's in the middle.
Right.
And
Isn't
it
it
pokes out
slightly
a
over
bit
to
to
the left-hand side?
Yeah, slightly.
Okay, all right. But not a problem.
It's also cushioned by these things called lungs.
And a rib cage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I think it's more to do with the abdomen. By the way, my guess, is that the best sleeping position will be on the left side.
Okay.
And that's it's for a couple of reasons. Okay. But this is a guess. I don't know. The liver's on the right, so there'll be less pressure on the liver and gallbladder if you're on your left. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you look at the anatomy of the stomach, I don't know which way around you're seeing this, but basically the esophagus or food pipe comes down, and then there's the bulk of the stomach is a bit more to the left-hand side. You could argue if you're on your left-hand side, it's more likely that whatever stomach contents there is, if there is some, it's going to settle into that larger part of the stomach, and you're less likely to get regurgitation, reflux, basically, at night if you're prone to that.
Yes.
Yeah. But the thing is that I don't know about you, but when I'm in bed, I like to face generally the outside of the bed. Does that make sense? So if I'm on the right side of the bed, I want to be on my right side. But actually, I sleep on the left side of the bed, and I'm on my left side. I like to face out of the bed. And I have a feeling, it's funny, like I said, I've only had about 2 hours sleep. So not only was my flight delayed into here, there is this phenomenon of people going into a hotel and sleeping very badly. And there's this theory it's to do with some sort of primal, you're in a new environment. You don't know whether there's sort of snow leopards or something, that are going to come and eat you.
It's a very worthwhile concern.
So I have a feeling that some of my desire to look out of the bed is a kind of vigilance. It's like, well, if something's coming, I need to.
It is an alpha male. It's an alpha male position. I would say so. I can completely see that, and probably facing the door as well. And it's a bit of a toss-up, though, isn't it? Because I think it's bad sleeping partner etiquette to turn your back on your partner, but at the same time, you might say to them, "Look, I'm protecting the periphery here whilst we're asleep." Yeah,
I'm protecting the tribe.
Absolutely. I will.
I'm what you want. If this was, if this was 50,000 years ago, I'm the man for you. Yeah,
and that doesn't go unnoticed. I think that does not. That does not go unnoticed. It's a great chat-up line as well. Not that either of us are in that condition, but for younger men watching, you might want to try that. You might want to try that. You might not. Okay, excellent. So that sleeping position's very, very, very interesting there. And I think as we were talking about that, people were visualizing themselves, how do I, oh, okay, yeah, yeah. And maybe try something different, mix it up. And it's funny, isn't it? You mentioned, sleeping on the back is not a great idea. I mean, the first thing we learn in first aid is the recovery position, which is not to have people on their back, right? It's to get them over on their side,
Yeah,
like you're suggesting for sleeping.
you don't want them doing a Jimi Hendrix.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Snow
Um,
leopards, marbles sewn into your pajamas. I mean, the things we cover, and Jimi Hendrix, the things we cover here on the Life Support
yeah.
podcast. Let's move on to natural eyesight improvement.
Hmm.
Um, now, you mentioned Louisa, my wife there. She has a range of, what would they be called? Aids, I suppose, to
Mm,
improving her eyesight, including conventional spectacles, but other things like pinhole glasses. I think that's called the Bates method. I'm
yeah,
guessing you've looked into this, John, into alternative eyesight
I have a
improvement.
bit. Just an overarching thing here is this: is that I have um, been a bit cynical about opticians for a
Yes,
long
me
time,
too. Yeah, yeah,
and it's to do with this. Right, so you're wearing these glasses. By the way, I'm short-sighted. I've been wearing glasses since I was about sort of, I think, 14.
okay.
So I'm about -3 diopters in both
To be
eyes, which
exact. Yeah,
basically means, look, I can get around this bedroom fine. I actually very, very rarely wear glasses unless I'm navigating my way out of Copenhagen airport, which seems about 3 miles long.
yeah.
Literally walked for about 25 minutes to get out of the airport yesterday. But anyway, or I'm driving, for example, or I'm watching rugby on the television. Other than that, I don't wear my glasses at all. And there's a little bit of a lesson there in
yes.
that I've my prescription has stayed the same for years and years and years. And I
Yeah.
don't go to opticians. I just use the same prescription to order glasses online and then I wear them as little as possible.
Yep.
And I have a feeling that has more or less allowed my eyes to be, well, have reduced the risk of my eyes worsening as an
Yeah.
optician would generally, oh, they're off by a quarter. We need new lenses. Oh, you need new glasses. That's £295. Oh, all right. Was it
Yes.
that bad?
Yeah.
It's that. Okay, so there's that. All right. Um, the other thing is that I think, the only person I know of my age, I'm 60, who doesn't have reading glasses.
Same
I
here.
don't use reading glasses. You don't use them either.
No, no. I mean, to be fair, my arms have had to get longer and longer.
It's the old
But
trombone thing, is it?
it isn't it? But
Or,
they're not as quick as they used to be. So when you're a kid, you remember you'd run up to an adult when you hold something up really close to their face and say, "Look at this," and they'd go, "Ah!" and they'd be sort of trying to move it further away so they could see, and then their eyes would have to adjust in a way that your
yeah,
young eyes were just seeing everything in perfect focus
yeah,
all the
yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah,
whatever distance. So I
yeah,
have
yeah.
noticed a change, but I completely, from a sort of lay point of view and superstitious point of view, completely concur with this view that to give your eyes their own exercise and not have them become dependent on a new
Well,
normal, which then has
that,
its own changes, doesn't it, over time?
that's the thing. So if I pick this up, my hotel card, and there's some quite small print here, I
Yeah.
don't even have to do the old trombone or anything. I look at it, and it's like looking
Oh,
at it when I
wow.
was. Do you know what I mean?
Perfect.
Right. Now, why is that? Well, first of all, because I've completely resisted the idea that I'm going to need reading glasses. And it's not by the way that I'm wrestling with it. As I just say, I can read this completely normally. But
Yes.
I've got a feeling, another thing is that I've never really worn sunglasses. And I have a feeling
Same
this
here.
may
Yeah.
have something to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't think sunglasses are a great idea. What they tell you is you need to protect your light from the UV, otherwise you're going to get cataracts and all that. Oh, I don't know what they say. It's that stuff, protect your skin, protect this, But the sun is probably one of the most health-giving things possible. Not just, vitamin D during the warmer months, for example. Light itself on the skin, helps produce ATP, the basic current of energy in the body, helps
Mhm.
increase nitric oxide, which helps, circulation, dilates blood vessels and whatever. There's other effects in the eye. And why would you block that? I have a feeling that light is very important for eye health. So we're not talking about the Bates method or anything like that now. We're just talking about what is good for the eyes. And I would just say, depend on your eyewear if you are short-sighted or long-sighted, whatever, as little as possible. Use your eyes as much as possible in their natural state. And if you can avoid it, do you know what I mean? Don't use sun. I don't know if anyone's
I'm with you. I've never been a fan, never adopted it. And it's interesting, isn't it? All the sort of accessories that humans can have access to, they often do, and then they create dependencies upon those things, and their baseline changes, doesn't it? And presumably with these other more eccentric accessories of pinhole glasses, they're giving the eyes work to do. And I remember interviewing a man a long time ago. I forget his name now, but he claimed to have recovered his eyesight through exercises from being legally blind to having a driving license again. I want to say Meyer Schneider. I'm not sure if that was his name, but he wrote a book about it. He did workshops on it, and this was having people exercise their eyes rather than this. I mean, the key thing perhaps we're talking about here is what we have as our givens, right? That we're born in a collective culture that says your eyesight's going to go. All the old people around you have glasses on. That's the proof of it. And we don't. That's the orthodoxy, isn't it? Is that it's a failing organ from the get go, and you need to help it with optics and opticians and so on and interventions. Whereas if you just push back against that a little bit, you can get different results. And it's not the only thing, is it? It's not the only thing where we think like that.
I think you're completely right about that. I think there's a kind of prescribed view and a conventional wisdom around aging and the aging process. And you're probably similar to me in this respect. I reject all of that. By the way, I'm not completely Peter Pan. Like, I do appreciate I'm 60 and things don't work quite as well as they did when I was 20.
Yes.
But I resist the idea that certain things are a natural consequence and an inevitable consequence of the aging process.
This is so brilliant. I mean, Peter Pan,
like, for example, maturity, which
that's never going to happen.
Rails again.
Let's face it.
Well, I'll tell you after tomorrow night with my friend Bjorn. I'll send you the photos and you'll see. I don't think maturity.
Yeah, definitely send a few. Send some infantile
for him either. By the way, I mean, I don't even know how
I'm
old
glad
Bjorn
to hear
is, but he's very young of spirit. Anyway, so there's that. Okay. Also, there's certain nutrients that seem to help the eyes. So, one of the conditions you can get as people age that can affect vision is something called macular degeneration. So the macula is the fine detail seeing part of the retina, like the film, the back of the camera. And it can degenerate. There's two main sorts, wet and dry and whatever. Anyway, but there is some evidence that this can actually be retarded as a process through certain nutrients. The main two are something called lutein and something called zeaxanthin. So out there are products that actually include things like lutein and zeaxanthin that I think are worth considering for people that feel they're at particular risk. Maybe they have a family history, or there seems to be the early signs of this, and they're thinking, is there something else that I can do? Yes, probably. I mean, there are, fruits and vegetables that contain these things. If you really want to get to, I suppose, what you might call useful doses, you might go, well, maybe I'll take this supplement that I've researched called Eye Support or whatever, and no affiliation, by the way. But, maybe that's a good thing to do if you're looking particularly to preserve the health of the back of the eye. Then we've got all the Bates stuff. I don't know very much about it, but one thing I want to say about it without being too cynical is I saw a video recently. A friend of mine sent me a video, and it was this lady explaining pinhole glasses and why they're beneficial. And she said, to give you a very practical demonstration of this, look, over into the distance and now scrunch your eyes up like this and you'll see that you can see better. Okay, that is true. When someone's short-sighted like me can't see something, if I scrunch my eyes like that, I can't read.
Telescopic effect.
Well, there's this thing in optics or light or whatever, where if light goes through a narrow slit, it refracts the light and it disperses it. The problem with short-sighted people is that they're forming the image in front of their retina. Okay, So if this is the eyeball, light's coming in here. Okay, so it comes like that, and then it gets focused, hopefully on the retina. But actually, the image is being focused in front of the retina. Okay, here.
Yeah.
If you scrunch your eyes up, technically, what could be happening is the light is being refracted as it goes through the eyelids here, and so now it's falling closer to, or actually on the retina.
Very
and
good.
I have a feeling, I do not know, but I have a feeling this is how pinhole glasses actually work.
Yes, but just if you look through a small aperture in your fist, it has the same effect.
It's the
So,
same effect.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
the same thing. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything magical about that. It might, there might be,
And we
but
don't
I have a
mind that.
feeling it's just physics.
Yeah,
Is my
yeah,
guess.
I would agree. I would agree. Very good. Okay, so that's from the mailbag, natural eyesight improvement. We'd love to get more suggestions from you about what we might look at here on the Life Support Podcast. Love to hear suggestions from if you are enjoying the podcast. Please subscribe and please send in those suggestions. And it was indeed Mayer Schneider who wrote the book Vision for Life, who I met and interviewed. We both did, me and Louisa. And when I interviewed him, he
Is
didn't
that another
say
German, by the way?
no, he's American, I guess, of German origin, but a Californian, I believe. And his eyesight, an interesting comment on his eyesight, he didn't ask me to go and sit in the light where he could see me better, as he did with my beautiful wife. But there you go. That might have been nothing to do with his eyesight at all. Right, let's move on to what's known as TDS. It's obviously very common at the moment, Trump derangement syndrome. And something I'd like to conclude with today as a contribution. When I first became aware of Donald Trump and the political phenomenon that is Donald Trump, I had TIS, Trump indifference syndrome, and I thought it was I thought it was quite funny, quite honestly, that people were losing their minds. And yes, this is probably 10 years ago.
Is this before he was elected in 2016?
Before, when you saw
Is
him,
this when he announced and he was on the campaign
around that time, and the few years afterwards, when he did get elected, and I would see, the memes that you see of blue-haired women screaming. That's the kind of iconic images, not of TDS, of Trump derangement syndrome, which, as far as I know, is not a psychological, psychiatric phenomenon at all. It is just a sort of meme creation that has stuck, and it's become a put down for people. And I didn't have it, back in those days, and I thought it was quite amusing seeing other people losing their minds. And I just thought, it was an intelligence test, really, to look at him and what he stood for and what it was about, and you could eat it or throw it away, as it were. And I was quite indifferent for many years. More recently, I found myself glued to the media, especially around the time of, my Trump indifference syndrome has turned into some very British, somewhat botherment syndrome by recent actions. And I was glued to news media and to X, John, looking at what now? Oh my God, what now? What next? And seeing this escalation and feeling myself in a very different position to 10 years ago, of thinking all these judgments and irritations about his behavior and his administration's behavior. And I had to take a look at this. I had to look at why I transitioned from being, seeing it quite amusingly at people losing their minds, to actually having him live rent-free in my mind. I wouldn't describe myself as deranged, but certainly shifted and possessed by my fascination and attraction for finding out what was going on. And the clue to it was Louisa, my wife, saying, "He reminds you of your dad, doesn't he?" I was like, and it kind of it went by me, but stuck a little bit. Like, he reminds you of your dad, doesn't he? And I, just recently, in really wanting to understand this, because I don't want to be glued to X. I don't want this, like each time I walk past my computer, quickly logging onto X to see what the latest installment is. I don't want that. I do want this, like the perimeter thing we're talking about, the alpha male thing of like wanting to know what's going on in the world. But I want a balance of that with not being obsessed. And she was absolutely spot on again with this. And the vision that came to me, or the breakthrough, the realization I had, was that he really does remind me of my father. And I think of myself as a grown man looking at X, And as the breakthrough occurred to me of what was really going on, it was like being a little boy again, being overwhelmed by like a grown-up male character who was unpredictable and unreasonable, and his way or the highway. And I had no idea, sort of subconsciously, unconsciously, that's what was going on. I'd rationalized it as a political interest, but what was going on was an emotional thing that I was.
That, I mean, that I think is not an uncommon phenomenon where people
In
play
politics,
out
right?
in their sort of adult lives. No, in
Projection.
their adult lives generally,
Oh,
exactly.
okay. Yeah.
So, so a fairly decent question, I think, to ask people that you're considering being in a relationship with, for example, or getting out of them subtly, is what sort of relationship they have with their parents, and
Yes,
particularly,
indeed. Yeah.
you know, women with their fathers with them, you know, those sort of things. It's actually often helpful. It's often useful intel. By the way, you're the only person I think I've ever met. I could say that about a lot of things to do with you, by the way. But I think you're the only person I've ever met who was indifferent to Trump, because my experience of him and talking, if you can actually have a conversation with anyone about Trump,
Which you can't very easily anymore, can you?
It's hard. It's hard, particularly now.
Yeah.
Perhaps I'll expand on mine in a moment. But you're the only person that I've ever met that has been indifferent to him, because most people I find fall into two camps. You've either got, you know, people who actually like him. Now, for example, you know, I suppose I had an indifference to him when he declared, and I found him quite a curiosity. And one thing about Trump is he does suck all the energy out of the room. I mean, you can't not look. It's like not rubbernecking on a motorway. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
There's a pile up here. How you can knock it? Trump is like that.
Yes.
Like it's all eyeballs on him.
Political
You can't
pile-up.
ignore him. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I found people other than you form two camps: either those that were into it and those that were absolutely not. You know, orange man bad.
Yeah.
Actually, for a lot of time during his first term, because I know if you look at him on the outside, he's a figure of fun. But actually, I'm not interested in really what people say or even how they present themselves. I'm very interested in what are they doing. Okay.
Well, the results.
And in his first term, you know, no new wars. That's changed now, but no new wars. I think he made America essentially energy independent. Decoupling from China, that's probably a good idea. Do you know what I mean? Bringing manufacturing back in, you know, he's very, what was genuinely, I think, America first. Okay, you can have your issues around it, but overall, given that he was stymied, even sometimes by his own party, I felt actually that wasn't a bad term. Like if I'm looking at it, there's no true objectivity, but if I'm looking at it as objectively as possible, that's also, I think, the person that made me aware of this, by the way, is Scott Adams, who we mentioned, I think, on the very first podcast. He's the, you know, person that Dilbert.
Yeah.
This is where the systems over goals sort of idea came from, at least for me, where the first thought about that came to me. But also, he was a person when Trump was campaigning that said he's going to win, and here's why he's going to win. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was to do with his communication, because he is. I know it looks like he's a complete idiot, but actually he's, I think, a very clever communicator and very persuasive. And that's the point Scott Adams was making, and he got sort of pilloried for it, but he stuck to his guns and he was elected. So he was right. He may have been right for the wrong reasons, but he was right. Anyway, so through that arc, I'm not particularly embedded in American politics. I'm like, okay, fine. I can see why people don't like him. But I can see why people like him. And looking at his record in the first term, I'm like, okay, I get that. And also, I have a deep, visceral reaction against Hillary Clinton. So if I was American and I was voting, and I would have not voted, okay, almost certainly in 2016 or 2015, when they had the election. But if I was forced and they said, no, you have to, I'd have voted for Trump.
Very
I say that categorically, okay, because I have such a deep, visceral reaction against Hillary Clinton. I just think she is not a nice person, not in any way to be trusted. I'm not saying Trump is.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that brings me back to the point I'm hoping to make with this is why is that? And whenever we are triggered or stimulated to dysfunction or derangement that might be saying something about more about us than the person we're projecting those feelings onto, right? And I don't know. That's for you to figure out about Hillary Clinton, isn't it? But
You're not
that's
saying that Hillary Clinton and my late mother have anything in common, do you? Other than being
I
women.
wouldn't dare, John. You know I wouldn't. That's
my
a
mother, the
conversation.
master healer. Yeah.
Right, exactly. No,
by the
not
way, before we
necessarily.
move on, let me just say I like the idea of no wars, and what Trump has done now in the Middle East
Yes.
strongly suggests to me, because I actually believe he doesn't believe in war. Okay.
Yes.
But that particular instance makes me believe. I used to also think that Trump was pretty much his own man.
Yeah.
I really did believe that he was quite independent, and part of his attraction for someone like me is he's not a politician.
Well, there you go. It's
like
all
that.
about projection.
No, I like that. I like that.
It's all about.
But now, what I feel, this is a feeling. I don't know what's going on in the Epstein file, whatever. I think he's compromised. He's doing someone else's bidding, I think. And I don't think he's free. Tucker Carlson recently said this, by the way. So I've got very political. I'm not a very political person. I'm much more interested in well-being. Okay, and
but
health,
this is what happens, isn't it? Around this space, this is what happens.
This is kind of important because,
yes,
geopolitically, this is a major thing. But I do think he is compromised. Tucker Carlson recently, in an interview on the BBC, as it happens, described him as a slave. He said he feels sorry for him because a slave, and I think he is. I think he's doing someone else's bidding. I think he's lost that agency that he once had, and he's now doing something that I think deep down he actually doesn't want to do or truly believe in.
Agree
I think it's compromised. Okay,
I agree with.
Anyway, get back to the point that you were making about this. You're saying that sometimes, when we're, for want of a better term, I hate this term, triggered.
Yes.
It's because of stuff. It's something to do with our history and past experiences. And
correct.
Yes,
absolutely. And that's
can be that, but it can also be a part of your moral or ethical code or your values.
It could well be. It could well be.
No.
And yes.
No.
And the important thing is to be having an intelligent analysis and conversation about that, right? Because I think only through that can you know if that is the case. And it is a conversation, whether it's with yourself or with others, that's worth having to see whether your derangement is coming.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you're just reacting to someone said, oh, if you don't turn the heat down on that burner, you're going to burn the whatever, and you explode to that. Well, that's not deep ethical moral code. That probably is something to do with some experiences you've had and not being told what to do, and
they haven't been resolved. They haven't been resolved some 30, 40 or 50 years later. That's where the juice is for me.
Whereas indiscriminate killing of people in a country who are completely innocent and just happen to live in a country that, according to some sources, was no threat. Well, that's something else. That's kind of probably not something from your childhood and past relationships. It's to do with a ethical, moral, values-driven code telling you that isn't right.
Absolutely.
And I don't support it. Yeah.
No, that's where I am, and from the situation I have been
with Trump and Trump derangement syndrome, with you, which is it, do you think, really? Do you think it's your dad? Or is it
no, I'll tell you that it's both. It's both. And what's useful to me is being able to now discern when I am what I would like to think a 60-year-old having an ethical view, or a 5-year-old who is back in the hands of a position that I can't cope with. And that's what I think. That's the interplay and how it moves and what's worth watching.
You're reminding me of something once. I was in South Africa once. I've been doing a sort of lecture tour. And then as part of the thank you for coming, they hosted me on some sort of safari thing. And while I was there, and I was actually with my host's boyfriend, lovely guy called John, and we were having breakfast out on the veranda sort of thing in this nice sort of lodge place. And the election where it was Bush and Gore.
Oh yeah,
Bush and Gore. It was that one where Gore lost and he was expected to win, I think. So it would have been, I think, Bush's second term. This is Bush Jr. second term. So I don't know what year this is. I'm not very good with years. But basically, that election had just happened. And someone was commenting on this and said, yeah, it looks like Bush has won. And there was a couple here, and I think they were a honeymooning couple. And this young American lady sort of went like this. She heard this. She said, has Gore conceded like this? And someone said, no, I don't think he's conceded, but I think it's pretty clear. And goes, well, if he hasn't conceded, if she starts getting all uppity and whatever and blah, blah, blah. Again, I know this is political. And I'm sitting there with my friend, because we've become very good friends, like that. And I wanted to say, this is not you not being heard at the dinner table with your father.
Yeah, right.
That's not this situation. Okay, so
there you were in paradise, right? There you were in paradise. This is exactly
that's the distinct impression I got, that she's constantly having to be heard and have her opinion, whatever, and in a strident whatever, because probably, no, I don't know, I'm just surmising, it may have nothing to do with that. It may have been due to the fact that she's, left-leaning. She hears Bush, she's in again, not happy about it, and that's triggered her. But I had a strong feeling as I was sitting there, is that this is someone.
Well, being able to discern that for yourself, I think, is the kind of emotional biting.
Well, exactly right. It's not for me to judge.
It's incredible. Yeah, sure. But I get it. I get it.
I'm there with my scrambled eggs. I should have just
trying to enjoy the safari, and there she is freaking out. But that's something we can have for ourselves, isn't it? To have that level of discernment, to see if we're being activated or triggered by something from the past or some ethical point of view in this here and now. John, got to go. Enjoy Copenhagen, and we'll speak again. If I say so myself, what a great episode. Sleeping positions, alternative or natural sight improvement, and a bit of Trump derangement syndrome at the end there. Have a great time in Scandinavia. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. See you next week.